Tiana Tuiono.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister and reads, why is he supporting a bill that the Waitangi Tribunal findings state if the bill remained on the statute book for a considerable time, it was never repealed, it would mean the end of the treaty?
We will support the bill at first reading and then we'll vote against it at second reading. And the only reason that bill will remain on the statute book for a considerable time is if the opposition votes for it, because National won't be doing so. The reality is we are in an MMP environment with a coalition government. That is the reality of it. I'm sure the ACT Party didn't get everything they wanted. The National Party didn't get everything they wanted. We came to a compromise. This is the way that we're handling it. We will support it at first reading, but we're free to support it, not to support it at second reading, and that's what we'll do.
Supplementary.
Just that sort of general barracking just got to stop.
Supplementary. How does he respond to the finding of the Waitangi Tribunal that, and I quote, the Treaty Principles Bill would end the treaty partnership and any formal relationship between the Crown and Māori, and could have the impact of undoing everything that has been achieved for Māori in the past 40 years, end quote?
Well, if the opposition parties at second reading vote against it like the National Party will, it won't become law.
Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order, the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has no responsibility whatsoever for how the opposition parties vote, and yet has continued to refer to that in his answers today. He does, as Prime Minister, have responsibility for the decisions that his government has taken. This is another example of a member asking a question of the Prime Minister about decisions that his government has taken, which he has chosen to refer to decisions the opposition might take in his answer. He should answer for the government.
And he has done. He said in a number of times that it is the policy of the government. And the fact that the policy might be to vote for a first reading and not for any more, nonetheless, that is the policy. And the other question that is being asked is covered off, I think, by the problem you've got with the structures we have under MMP, where you form a government from parties that will have different views, make concessions to one another, which mean that there'll be some bills supported some way through the House that may not be supported to the rest. Now, if you want to turn around and say, hang on, you want to turn around and say that somehow I should rule that the provisions of the MMP electoral system do not apply inside this House, that would be an utter nonsense.
No, point of order, Mr. Speaker. I'm not arguing that at all. I'm asking you to enforce the rules that say that the government needs to answer questions about decisions it's taken. The Prime Minister has repeatedly said the government has taken a decision to support the bill at first reading. Therefore, asking him to answer questions about the implications of that decision, about a bill that they have indicated they are supporting at first reading, is not asking him in any way to abrogate or to bypass the MMP party system. It's asking him to explain the implications of a decision that they have taken to support.
He did answer in a way that is a speculation about what might happen. He has previously said quite clearly supporting it to the first reading, not any further. That can't be clearer when you're asking about a Waitangi Tribunal position that what would happen if this was on the statute books for a longer time. For the Prime Minister to speculate, the only way that could happen would be if other parties in this House beyond his own and those who've declared a second reading against it voted for it. I don't think it's an unreasonable answer.
It's not answering the question. Will the government support a shortened select committee process to save the significant expense that the House will go to in having the bill at select committee for 6 months, given the government has already determined it's going to fail at second reading?
No, but I think it is a bit rich from that member to raise expense when he and that member spent $1.2 billion on Three Waters and it went nowhere.
My question is to the Prime Minister, does he stand by all his government's statements and actions?
Yes.
Does he believe his coalition agreement with ACT has more mana and integrity than Te Tiriti or Waitangi?
As I've explained, we are in a coalition government. We are supporting as a government this bill to first reading, and beyond that, it'll be up to each individual party as to whether it ultimately goes through and becomes law.
How can tangata whenua and tangata tiriti voters have confidence in a Prime Minister who is willing to sponsor a select committee process which will become a platform for racism and misinformation, given the findings of the Waitangi Tribunal? The Māori-Crown relationship has already been damaged and would be further damaged, including by the select committee process, which we fear could become a platform for racism and misinformation that would prejudice Māori.
They can have confidence because they've got a government that's here to advance outcomes for Māori and non-Māori. And what I'd say to you is that when we have 12% of Māori students at year 8, thank you, Labour government, we have a plan to deal with that. When we can move 1,500 children, many of them Māori, out of emergency housing accommodation in motels into permanent, proper homes, that's great. That's a fantastic outcome. It's better than what that government did for 6 years with an absolute majority for the last 3 and did so very little. It's fantastic that we are working incredibly well with Māori health organisations to improve immunisation rates for under 2-year-olds. That's about outcomes and getting things done for Māori and non-Māori.
How can he sleep at night knowing that the violence of the Treaty Principles Bill is going to have a discriminatory intergenerational impact on our mokopuna?
I disagree with the characterisation of that question.
What do you do? How many apologies is the state willing to make while they continue to inflict violence and abuse on our people whilst continuously breaching te tiriti o Waitangi?
Again, I disagree with the characterisation of that statement. This is a government that is here to advance and improve outcomes for Māori. And the sad reality is that under the previous administration, despite a much vaunted Māori caucus, very little was achieved for Māori. It's true.
How can he stand in this House and support a bill which the Waitangi Tribunal has described as, quote, the worst, let me emphasise, the worst, most comprehensive breach of the treaty, te tiriti, in modern time, end quote?
We're not supporting the bill in second reading.